Hello, my name is Zach Annette. My project is on the constitutional rights during a state of emergency. This is me. I'm Zach Annette. I'm an international affairs and political science major. I'm also a senior. Okay, so what is a state of emergency? A state of emergency is a situation of national danger or disaster in which a government suspends normal constitutional procedures in order to regain control. So basically, they declare martial law, which is the highest military officer who basically just starts as control the government in that area. Okay. So first thing we're going to look at is Article 1, Section 9, which discusses habeas corpus. And that what it is a writ of habeas corpus basically means an individual cannot be held by the government without valid reason or being held before a court. So they must go to court and be tried, and then they can be held. But during emergencies, it's usually not the case because governments can detain people without a charge or valid reason only because they're viewed as a threat, skipping the court process. So they don't have due process, they don't go through the system, they aren't tried, which is a big problem during national emergencies. Examples of violations of this: in 2006, President Bush violated habeas corpus with his Military Commissions Act of 2006. This law allowed the government to suspend the right of habeas corpus to individuals deemed by the U.S. government to be enemy combatants in the global war on terrorism. A big problem with this is no one knew, like, who had the say to say someone was an enemy combatant in the United States government. So it was very broad and very unconstitutional in a way because people were sent to prison without any trials or anything, just on a thought. What right is violated with this is a clear violation of our Sixth Amendment rights, which allows criminals a right to a speedy trial in court to determine their guilt. So during a state of emergency, when the writ of habeas corpus is basically just thrown to the side and people can be put into jail without any trial, it's a clear violation of our Sixth Amendment rights. But during a state of emergency, it's a little different. Next, we're going to look at our Second Amendment rights, which is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And an example of this is in North Carolina in 2010. After the winter storms hit, the governor declared a state of emergency, prohibiting not only alcohol but also firearms outside of homes. So you could have this inside of your home, but outside you cannot have any firearms, which is and problems that arise from this. The citizens were not able to protect themselves if they were to leave their homes for goods and services during a state of emergency. And if they were found with their guns, they would be jailed because they weren't allowed to have their guns, obviously. Not only could not bring their weapons with them, but they couldn't buy ammo at the stores. And this also happened in Hurricane Katrina, as after a state of emergency was declared, the government physically took the people's weapons, banning firearms. So as people were evacuating the city, government officials and police forces would search them for their weapons, and if they had any, they would be taken, which clearly violates our Second Amendment rights to be able to hold and bear arms. And here's a picture of that actually happening. Obviously, the rights that are being violated in this situation are our Second Amendment rights to bear arms. And although after the emergency was lifted, these acts were deemed unconstitutional, there's nothing you can really do at the time during a state of emergency during martial law. And even though it's a big thing, it goes against our Constitution. That's just kind of how it is during a national disaster. And while many other constitutional rights may be infringed upon during disaster situations, these are just a couple notable examples. However, if our rights are violated during a state of emergency, is it acceptable if it is for the greater good and protection of our population? I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, and that's the question I want you guys to answer in the discussion board as well. It may seem like a good idea at the time, in certain situations it may be. Is it necessarily morally acceptable for our government to do that, and do we have an obligation to follow that in a state of emergency? But yeah, that's my project. Thank you guys for watching, and that's about it.